Google Sheets and start adding numbers manually. I've seen people try and do mental math with spreadsheets, and I've even seen people taking out their calculators to try and add the numbers for them. You don't want to do that. There's a much faster way. Today, we're looking at this 2026 budget tracker that really only has to do with expenses. So you can see we have monthly expenses for January. It'll go all the way until December. And then in column A, we have our different expenses that we have for each month. So rent, utilities, internet, gym, transportation, miscellaneous, all that. Now, all those numbers are great on their own, but sometimes you just want to know what the totals are. So you can see we have this total column here where we want to find out what are our expenses for each month. Now, the great thing about spreadsheets that I've mentioned before is that it can do the math for you. So in January, we want to find out what are our January total expenses. So anytime I'm trying to do some math in a spreadsheet, I want to start with an equal sign. So I'm going to go equals. And now you can see it's going to prompt me to do what we're actually going to do. So it's equal sum, and then it's going to be the range. But just because we're learning, we're going to skip over that for now, but you could actually use that in practice. Now, when we're adding in a spreadsheet, you are finding the sum. So we're going to use the sum function. So we have equals and then sum, and then you need to have a bracket in order to start the formula. So right now we have equal sum, and then we need to tell it what we're trying to add. So we know we're trying to add our January rent all the way down to our January miscellaneous. And then just a close bracket for good practice, enter. Now I know in January my total expenses are $3,325. That's one way to find a sum. Another way is going to be like you would on a calculator. So we want the spreadsheet to do some math. So I need to start with an equal sign. Right now I'm going to ignore the sum function that it's prompting me with, and I'm going to go and do this in a different way. So I know, like a calculator, I'm going to add my rent. So I have C4, my 1200. I have to add my 210. I have to add my 80, add my 95, add my $400 for groceries, $150 for gas, $200 for insurance, $280 for eating out, $240 for entertainment, $60 for gym, $85 for transportation, $100 for my household, and $130 for miscellaneous. Now you can see everything is selected, and you can see all of this in the bottom that's being added together. So that looks good. I hit enter. So my February expenses are $3,230. And now, as I'm sure you could tell, that was not great. That took a lot of time. I don't want to use that method again for something like this. I want to just use my sum function. And then I can also, if I highlight stuff, you can see the sum in the bottom right hand corner, and right now it would be where the screen thing is, but my screen is unfortunately cutting that off. But you can't see it, and you don't want to rely on that, but that's just a quick way to see what the sum is for any given range. Now, I want to do this. I want to find my total expenses for each month. So I really could go for each month and go equal sum, select my range, and then close bracket, hit enter, or tab, it both works. Again, that's tedious, and the general rule that I like to have is if something is tedious, there's probably a faster way. And so in this case, there is a faster way, which has to do with cell referencing. So if I did it once, so for my January, and that's why I deleted my other numbers, my January expenses are $3,325. If I click on this once and move my cursor to the bottom right, I can click and drag this all the way over until December. And that's going to copy my formula all the way over. And so that's probably the fastest way to get a formula in a cell, and it can really save a lot of time. So I would really recommend that, and that's the quickest way to find a sum. So if you're just getting started, this is probably the first formula that you should learn. It's very useful, and I would recommend just practicing because it's really handy.